Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Broken Sleep crew. Thanks for that introduction, Aaron. Can you all hear me okay? Good. Okay, so I'm not going to try and follow that scout. That was so good. It was levitating, I think, at one point. That was extraordinary. Thank you. Thanks to all the readers. I've really enjoyed hearing the poems tonight. So I'm going to be reading a Desert Elegy, as you can see from the cover. This is a book of poems that was written in Death Valley in California, which was mentioned actually by Andrea right at the beginning of the reading. She mentioned Zabriskie Point, the Antonini film. And actually, I do have a coda in this book, which goes through that extraordinary, explosive final scene with the Pink Floyd soundtrack. But I won't read it tonight, but Andrea, you and I should talk. So what I'm going to do is take you back to that time where you remember the quietude of the roads, and people were wondering if just breathing really on the person next to you might infect them. So March, April 2020, as if we could forget. And for me, actually, it was a time of sort of blurred vision and shock. And it's because my older brother, Robin, passed away. He was 46. He had a heart attack, that's what we know. But he did have a cough at the end, so I do wonder if it was possibly COVID as well. But as most people will know, the government in this country don't test the dead. So at that time, my brother had a heart attack, and that's what went on the death certificate. So I found myself a year on, just over a year on from his death, and I went to, I wasn't sure how to really mourn him. I was in California, miles away from London, the city of his life and his death. And what I did is I drove into Death Valley and stayed there for 3 days to make a film and take some photographs. You'll see some of the photographs later. They're beautifully produced, replicated by Aaron. Thanks so much. You've done a wonderful job with this book. But yeah, I wanted to go into the desert to try and bury the sound of breaking glass, which was my brother's first memory. And that's where this section begins. One other thing about my brother, Robin is his name. He was intensely agoraphobic. I barely saw him outdoors for 20 years. And so being in the vast silence, the sort of explosive silence of Death Valley, as Antonini called it, was quite an important place to try and perform these series of rituals. The book, much like writing itself to me, is a series of rituals. So I'll get into it. First thing you remember, kicking in panels of glass as Mum and Dad warred upstairs. It was the day he tried to strangle me. It was the night she came at me with a carving knife. Brother, how to bury the sound of breaking glass. If I could wash the blood from your feet, the tears that tear. Death as contradictory gossip. What was that? Sometimes I carry the portrait of your face like carrying an empty wallet. All this and this, like trying to assemble the lineage of ashes. 6 a.m., slow fire. Heat steps along the pinnacles, a glower of sand at Trona, the valley's theater of dust evaporating over Panamint Springs until Wildrose, where the dash locks on 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Drive into stovepipe dunes with a medicine bag flailing around the throat. What turns itself on the hearing wheel of vastness gone quiet? Stagecoach, cactus outside the museum, estrangement as reticence, metabolic, not quite. As if I could find you without touch, like an idea out of reach, yet reached for. As if being here means the gallant outdoorsman, not your typical tourist overlooker. Audition for the part of grief's chameleon, cut. The light still rises over your shoulder, as if being here meant it were enough to bear this absence without the absence of air. So this is a longer section. There's a place, I don't know if anyone's been to Death Valley, but there's an extraordinary place called Artist's Palette. I don't have a picture of it to show you, but you can look online. And it's where the landscape, the desert landscape, has a myriad of different colors. And of course, I was thinking of my brother whilst I was in Death Valley, but I wrote this section for lots of different people I know and others who were in the public eye who passed away during the pandemic. So various people are acknowledged at the back of the book, so I won't go into it now, but this is an alphabet of losses, and some of you will be familiar with poets like Inga Christiansen, who uses the alphabet. More recently, really fine poem by Aoife Mannix, which I recommend. So the alphabet is used here, and also in celebration of the artist's palette landscape, everybody gets a color. A, for Alison, her brother gone yet conversant after a decade, Amber. B, who lost her father, anything but dying or death, it is his passing, Lime. C, who couldn't hold his mother's hand in the ambulance, Umber. D, who hit a 40 miles per hour sign doing 80, Adriatic. E, who tried CPR before the second seizure, but why did you have to die, Abalone. F, fractalized by death, who lives again after burying the sun, Firebrick. G, for Gaia, your uncle gone and your umbilicus in a locked drawer, Tiger. H, in Jeddah, winding up the memory box of loss, Maroon. I, grieving you, all the places we never went and went but never leave, Violet. J, whose parents died on the same day, apart but knowing, Cornflower. K, your mother and father in Derby via Amritsar, sorry is never enough, Coffee. L, whose father's face kaleidoscopes in a bottle of single malt, Lava. M, for Mum, the laguna of burying your own son, Rose. N, still walking the penumbra streets of Dublin, dust brown. O, for Olga, echoing in hallway mirrors, Ivory. P, night shifting the emergency ward, mask to the eyes, Canyon. Q, who renamed himself the devil's psychic, who is empty yet purulent, Ecru. R, for Tony, there's nothing that compares to the death of a sibling, and he knew, Purple Satin. S, for you, Sidewinder, hissing like a mine, Sapphire. T, for Toby, carving the wood of his mother's coffin, Chenna. U, in amaranth pink, singing Rebel Rebel through the kitchen. V, for Li Wenliang, the Wuhan whistleblower, Bone. W, who staked everything on a blast of new cells, dark slate gray. X, for Khazar Win, who shielded children from a rain of bullets, Fulvus. Y, the Shoshone, at the hands of the so-called pioneer, Red Ochre. Z, your encore, your platinum laughter, steel teal in a palette of loss. And so you're about to see a couple of images, sort of classic images from Death Valley. And yeah, this was sort of the bottom image there is as I was driving in through Stovepipe Dunes, which I mentioned earlier. But what I wanted to do in trying to bury the sound of breaking glass, my brother's first memory, was to perform a series of rituals. And one of these was to go to the lowest place in the Western Hemisphere. I think it's 260 feet below sea level, a place called Badwater. Great name, huh? And so I think, Aaron, you might have an image of Badwater. I'm not sure if it's on the next slide. Yeah, so you can see Badwater at the top there, salt encrusted. It was boiling hot when I was in Death Valley. It was, well, it reached 116 Fahrenheit at one point. I was taking pictures and my camera was going to melt. So this is a series of rituals that I'm going to finish on, which are in Badwater. This one yeah, it's pretty much in the spot that you can see the photograph at the top. To think of you at your lowest point, in the lowest point of the Western Hemisphere, bad water, metabolize this, walk through salt, wool blood, sand hour, brother, nobody can harm you anymore. Myocenic insignia, glass inside clavicles of rock, quartz breath of oxygen, agoraphobia, the limping brother, heal with salt, unsuffer alive. No more counting cracks in pavement slabs, goodbye. A sudden release of pressure, the city's gridded constrictions. Be good to yourself, and something good will happen, said the celebrant. Cloud shadow unthreads Thorndike, drifts over mahogany mountain like a form of breath, released. You, the child, the petrified angel, the adult who always wanted to leave. Leave. So this is me on the floor of Badwater, performing. I did some research into shamanic initiation practices. I'm not preposterous enough to pretend that I'm some kind of poet shaman, but I did a bit of research into trying to connect with my brother before finally, and I won't read this section, it is in the book, trying to bury the sound of breaking glass. And here I am on Badwater. You might be able to see there's a bit of sage here and things that are lit. But what I had to do, according to the initiation, was obviously put something over my head so I couldn't see, and go into a tunnel. And what I did in this particular section, just read a couple of pages of this, about halfway through the ritual, is go into what the shamans call the otherworld, with some kind of spirit animal. So I pulled up at the car park, and fortunately staring at me was a desert fox. So that was the spirit animal. And here I am trying to, at this point in the ritual, and I'm just chanting it out loud. There will be a film made of this. I'm trying to make contact with my brother. Of course, I realize fully that he's passed, but you know, had to try. And here I am trying to go through the tunnel. And at the end of this section, and the last thing I'll read, is what is a piece of automatic writing. So you finish the ritual, you take the cloth off, and you just write the first thing that comes into your head. And that'll be the last piece I'll read. Tunnel, meaning way in, way out. How slowly the moon passes over your eyes. Wake up, you love too much what is gone. To leave, to arrive, what does it mean in the afterskin at the collection of your body? Stay a while, no, take me back. Nobody comes back. Desert fox, who looks away first? Who possesses who? Take me back, no, no, no. Brother, you never asked to come here. I never asked you to come here. I needed to know what to do, what to do. Salvia, salvage. You wait inside a stone-boned old grotto, and I can't see you in the buried darkness. His story, his, who said the dead are ever free? Blood on sage, a scarred moon. Your face refracts inside the glass. You are the tunnel, the entrance and exit. Let me out. Radiant the boy, buying daffodils for his mum, the greengrocer must have said to the florist when you walked in 7 years old on Mother's Day, too small to count out your change on the counter. Mountain, see this, fill me with smoke's forgiveness. You died in your bed thinking you were having a panic attack last thing before sleep. You died on your bed and Damien didn't even call the ambulance or police or fuckhead even tell us you had died. The mortuary called the numbers you left beside the bed. We go where in the sand when we cannot say goodbye? You were 46, 46, pour the blessing oil, sagebrush, burn through this missing you, salt as residue from the lowest point of earth. Let me live with you, without you, salvia, heal, learning to hear you quiet, the sound of breaking glass unmemoried, but not gone, always knowing both you and me. Thanks, everyone.